All right, so we did a little bit of a review on parallel lines. Now we're going to look at what it means for lines to be perpendicular. So first thing, you don't have to draw that, but that's what perpendicular lines look like. Okay? Parallel lines look like this. They're two lines that never cross, like railroad tracks, right? Stay right next to each other. Perpendicular lines, they make like a plus sign, or there's certain letters in the alphabet, like if you made a capital T. The top of the T and the bottom part of the vertical part of the T, they are perpendicular. If you made a capital L, the height and the base of the L are perpendicular. And this little symbol right there, they usually put that little square there just so whoever's looking at it knows, oh yeah, that's supposed to be exactly perpendicular. All right? But that's what perpendicular lines look like. Right?
Does it matter which one you put the box on?
No, you could put the box anywhere. But in like a capital L, there's only one place to put it. Okay, but sometimes there's more than one place. Like a capital I. There's a couple perpendiculars. The top and the height are perpendicular, and the bottom and the height are perpendicular. Okay? So, perpendicular lines make what we call a right angle. Okay? A right angle is an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. Okay? You're going to study more about that in geometry next year, so you don't need to write that down. What's going to be important here is this next thing. What about their slopes? Okay, that's what we're studying. If two lines are perpendicular, their slopes have a connection. They're not the same slope. Same slope would be parallel. The slopes are what we call opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. So on line 1, you want to put opposite. There's actually a lot of extra space there. And on line 2, you want to put reciprocals. Okay, and I'll give you guys an example. Okay, so for example, let's say 2/3 and anybody think they could give me the opposite reciprocal of 2/3? So in your head, you've got to do two things. First, flip it, and then make it negative. You've got to do both. The flipping is the reciprocal part, making it negative is the opposite part.
-3/2.
-3/2. Yep. So if I were to draw two lines on a piece of graph paper, and one of them had a slope of 2/3, and one of them had a slope of -3/2, they would make a perfect plus sign. They would make a perfect plus sign. It's exactly what they would look like. I mean, the plus sign might be turned. Could be like that, but that's still perpendicular. It doesn't matter how the plus sign is turned. As long as they make a plus sign, whichever way it's turned, those are opposite reciprocals. So you guys got to write those two bold words in. Now, this part, I'd probably go through a little quicker normally, but since we haven't done it since the last class, which was like 2 weeks ago, I'll go through nice and slow with it. We're going to use the same format that we've always used for parallel. We're going to use it again for perpendicular. That's what's in this box. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So in that box, you want to put that in. Okay? And then after we write what's on these 5 lines, that's it for notes. The rest is just some examples to try. Okay? Probably not going to do practice A and B. But if we get to it, then this is 4 problems to try. All right, but that's the equation we're going to use. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So, in the box, what do you do with the y? Nothing. Remember, y stays as y. So for you guys, I would just put it all on the same line, because you only have one line to write stuff on. But the y stays as y. So you leave it. How about the y1? Does that stay the same? Or do we normally fill something in for y1? Okay, when you have the y1, does that stay the same? Or do you have to put a number in for it? You have to put a number in for it. There's three things you have to put numbers in for. That's one of them. How do you know what number to plug in? Well, in the problem, you look at the coordinate, and the y is always the number after the comma. The y1 is the number after the comma. Now, I didn't say this, but the minus sign, that just stays right where it is. Okay? You don't do anything to the y. You don't do anything to the minus. You don't do anything to the equals. You don't do anything to the left parenthesis, and you don't do anything to the right parenthesis. We've mentioned that a couple times. Now, looking at what's in that box, what's the next letter that we get to after the y1? M. And M is my what? It's my slope. I have to fill something in for that. How do I get slope? We just went over that in the warm-up. Okay? Now, when we fill in the slope, there's two things we have to remember. We don't want the slope to be the same. If we make the slope the same, we're doing parallel. We want the slope to be the opposite of what they give us, and we want it to be the reciprocal of what they give us, right? Because we're doing perpendicular. If you wanted parallel, then yeah, just keep it the same. Don't do anything to it. But if you want opposite, take the slope that they give you, and first make it the opposite, and then flip it. And we practiced that a little bit in the warm-up too. We'll practice a few more of doing that before we even do a whole problem. All right, so we get the y, we get the y1, we get the m. What's the next letter after m? X. Do we do anything with the x? Nope. X stays as x. If you guys look back at your notes from the last class we had, you guys already wrote all these steps before. It's just we kind of split it right with the vacation, so we'll just write them again. So x stays as x. And then the very last thing is x1. You have to fill something in for x1. How do you know what to fill in? Well, you're going to go back and look at the coordinate that they give you. Except the x part is before the comma. The y part is after the comma. So for x1, look at the coordinate they give you, look at the number before the comma, and that's the number that you fill in. So after you do all of that stuff, you will have something like this. You don't have to write that. I'm just showing you an example. Okay, but after you do those steps, you'll have something like that. Now remember what that's called. Point slope. Point slope. Does anybody remember what this one is called? I know we talked a little bit, but I don't know if we said the name of it today. So the bottom one is point slope. How about that's slope intercept? Okay. Remember, if you have something in point slope, okay, and if you need to write this, you could probably just squeeze it in, but you've written it before, so you might not need to write it again. You might even be able to squeeze it in under the line somewhere. But if you wanted to take this and change it into that, you'd have to get y by itself. Does anybody remember what you have to do with this 3? Because it's next to parentheses? Yep. Distribute. and then you'd have something like 3x minus 15. So you'd have to distribute. And then, what about this minus 2? How would you put that on the other side? So, Maya, how would you put that minus 2 on the other side? Yeah, you would add it. So you don't always have to do this. But if they ask you to change it from point slope to slope intercept, you've got to do two things. You have to distribute, and then you have to get the y by itself. Again, these steps are optional only if they ask you to do it in the problem. So as far as kind of notes and stuff, that's it. Now we'll just practice a few problems. Example 1 is super quick. Yeah. So example 1, we're not even doing equations. All we're doing is I'm going to give you a number. Bless you. I want you to tell me the opposite, and then I want you to tell me the opposite reciprocal. So how about, Gianna, what's the opposite of 2/3? Careful, opposite is what? Reciprocal is when you flip it. We're gonna do that in a minute. But for the first box, I just want the opposite of 2/3. Yes, negative 2/3. Now for the final box, I want the opposite and the reciprocal. So what would you put in the final box? Yep. Negative 3/2. This and that would be perpendicular slopes. Okay? That's what we're looking for. All right, so we're just practicing a little bit. The next one, negative 3/5. Julia, what's the opposite of negative 3/5? 3/5. So she gave me the opposite. Now in the next box, I also want the opposite reciprocal. So Blake, what's the reciprocal of 3/5?
5/3.
5/3. What's in that box and what's in that box would be perpendicular because they're opposites and they're reciprocals. How about 2? Remember, I think we did this one already. Think of it as 2/1. How about Jaden? What's the opposite of 2/1? Negative 2/1. And then when we flip it, it's 1/-2. Now, some people might say, well, does it matter where you put the negative? No, it doesn't. If you do this, that's exactly the same number. When you have a negative in a fraction, it doesn't matter where you put the negative. You have to have it there somewhere. Okay? 1/-2, negative 1/2, same thing. Now, a little tricky. What's the opposite of 0? 0. 0 is its own, it stays the same. The opposite of 0 is 0. Now, when you flip 0/1, you get a 1 in the top, you get a 0 in the bottom. That's not good. What happens when you divide by 0?
You get 0.
When 0's in the top, you get 0. When 0's in the bottom, what do you get? So when 0's in the top, you get 0. But here, 0's in the bottom. If you put 0 in the bottom, you don't get 0. What do you get?
It would be undefined.
It's undefined. If you try to take on a calculator and divide by 0, look what the calculator tells you. Cannot divide by 0. Can't do that. Right? What does that mean? Undefined. Yeah. Yeah. And remember what we said earlier. I asked you guys about different kinds of slope. If a line was perfectly horizontal, perfectly flat, it had a slope of 0. Now, think about it a little bit. If this line is horizontal, perfectly flat, and this line is perpendicular, the one that's undefined, What kind of line would be perpendicular to horizontal? Yeah.
Straight up and down.
Straight up and down, which is
Vertical.
vertical. That's the slope of a horizontal line. It's perfectly flat. That's the slope, bless you, of a vertical line. It's undefined. It's perfect. It's as steep as you can get. It's so steep we don't even have a number for it, right? Because you couldn't even climb it. It's just straight up. Okay? So first number, then we did opposite, then we did opposite reciprocal. Okay, so any questions on what those two words mean? Opposite versus opposite reciprocal. All right, so the last 2 or 3 questions, now they're giving us an equation. All right, so first thing you have to do when you read it, especially on a problem like on the midterm, is look for the word parallel or perpendicular. If it's parallel, that's what we did last class. If it's perpendicular, that's what we're doing this class. Okay? So they want you to write an equation of a line. Now, before I even read any further, write an equation of the line. Do they say what format it has to be in? Do they say, like, put it in point slope or put it in slope intersect? Tristan?
No.
No. So what I would do is, I would just leave it in point slope. I wouldn't do that extra step at the end where I say you have to distribute. They didn't say to do that here. Maybe they will on the next one, but they didn't for this one. All right. So here's our formula we need to plug into. Can somebody remind me, I'm going to circle them. How many things there do I have to fill in numbers for? I've got 5 things. How many out of the 5 do I have to fill in? 3. Okay. I have to fill in this, this, and that. Okay. Everything else, let's just copy it down. Okay. Y stays as Y. Minus stays as minus. Leave a little space because you've got to fill in Y1. M, leave a little space. We have to fill that in. X stays as X. No change there. Minus stays as minus. Parenthesis stays as parenthesis. So now we just have to fill in those 3 things. All right. Let's look at this. How about Mackenzie? What's Y1?
Y1 is 1.
Yeah, that's X1. That's Y1. Okay. So when you look at your coordinate, it's alphabetical order. X is before Y, just like in the alphabet. So Y1 is 1. Okay. Let's come back to M. Let's do X1. Can someone else tell me what X1 is? Yep. -3. Okay. Got to be a little careful there because we have minus a minus. That minus is part of the formula. That minus is part of the number 3. We'll come back to that in a second. Last thing I need is my slope. Now, I want a line that is perpendicular to this one. What is that? Does that mean that I want their slopes to be the same? No. If I wanted them the same, I would just put 1/2 right here and be done. End of problem. But I don't want the slopes to be the same. Look at the slope of this line right here. It's 1/2. To be perpendicular, it has to be the opposite reciprocal. So anyone think they can tell me in one step what the opposite reciprocal is of 1/2? Sophia?
-2/1.
Yeah, -2/1 or just -2. That's fine. And actually, I should do one thing right here. When you have minus a minus, what happens to that? It becomes a plus. So I'm just going to kind of go like that. Now, you guys don't have to graph this, but what I want to do is I want to put it in on the calculator and show you what they look like. If they're perpendicular, they should make what kind of sign did I say?
X.
Like an X, like a plus sign. So 1/2 x plus 3, that's the first one. Now, to type things in on this calculator, I have to get y by itself. So I'm going to do all that in my head. I'm going to distribute the -2 and add the 1. Okay, I have to do that. -2 times 3 is -6, plus 1 is -5. All right, so let's type in -2x, that's from distributing, plus 5. Okay, all I did was convert the answer you guys gave me into something I can put into the calculator. You didn't have to do that step. But let's graph it and see what it looks like. That's the first one. That's the one they gave us. That's the one you guys just gave me. Do those look like they make a nice plus sign? Yeah, perfect. Those two lines are perpendicular and they cross at exactly what we call a 90-degree angle. Yeah, perfect. And that's it. All right. Again, you don't have the graphing calculator, so you wouldn't be able to check your answer, and we don't really check our answers like that in Algebra 1. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys. All right. So this one, I'm going to give you guys like a minute or two to start it on your own. It says, write an equation of the line that passes through the point -3, 5. So that's the point that you're being forced to use. And they want it to be perpendicular to that line. Y equals -3x minus 1. Okay, so see if you can plug that into point slope on your own. And I'm reading the directions. Write an equation. Does not say what form it has to be in. So I would leave it in point slope. Don't distribute it and do any of that. So take a minute and just see if you can write the equation in point slope. Okay, when I write the equation in point slope form, what's the first thing that I write down? And this part never changes. Yep.
Y1.
That's going to be that's a few things later.
Y.
Y. Yep. Start with Y. What always comes right after the Y? This never changes.
Minus.
Minus. Unless you had minus a minus and then it changes to plus later. But you always start out with Y minus. Now we're going to do what James just said. We're going to put Y1. What's Y1 here? 5. It's the number after the comma. Y1. Is that going to change to a plus later? No, because it's just Y minus 5. It's not minus minus, just 1 minus. What about after the 5? What do we put next?
Equal sign.
Yep, put your equal sign. What comes right after the equal sign?
1.
How about in general? You always put the, what letter is after that? The M, which is your
Slope.
slope. Okay. What's your slope of the line that they gave you? Careful. You're looking at the y-intercept.
3. Right.
The slope of the line they gave you is -3. Oh. That's the slope they gave you. If they wanted the line to be parallel, you'd use the same number. They want the line perpendicular. So what does -3 turn into if we make it perpendicular? Remember, two things: opposite, reciprocal.
Positive 1.
Positive 1/3. So he made it the opposite. -3 turns into +3, and then reciprocal, flip it. So positive 1/3. Okay, what comes right after the 1/3? This never changes. Parenthesis. What comes after that? This never changes. X. What comes after that? Never changes. Well, unless it's minus a minus, then it could change. Minus. And what's going to come after the minus sign? -3, that number right there. -3. And the last thing I need just to finish that equation, I got to close my parenthesis. Now, the only thing we have to do is inside the parentheses. What's x minus -3?
X plus 3.
X plus 3. Let's make it plus, and that's it. That's the equation.
That's the answer.
Yep, that's the answer. If they wanted it in slope-intercept, then I would have to distribute the 1/3, and then I would have to add 5. Okay? So just to show you what that would look like, if you did it, you don't have to do it, but if you did, 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. 1/3 times 3, that comes out nice. 1/3 times 3, if you use your calculator, would be 1 plus 5. 1 plus 5 is 6. Okay? You did not have to go that far, but if they ever ask you to put it in slope-intercept, that's all you'd have to do. Distribute, and then add 5. Okay? If I wanted to show you that on the calculator, I would have to do that right there. Calculator, my calculator, it can't do things like what's in that box. It has to be like what's right there. Okay. Any questions before we look at last one? All right. So, last problem. I know it's a little small, but you guys got it on your paper. It says, city council members want to make a boardwalk along the beach. It says they want the boardwalk shown in bold. So, okay, I'm going to make that a little even bolder so you can see it. That's the boardwalk. They want the boardwalk to be perpendicular to the road leading to the beach. This is the road. How do I know that? Because they said the boardwalk is in bold. So the boardwalk is in bold, and the road leading to the beach, they want it to be perpendicular. It says write an equation of the boardwalk. Right? So write an equation of the boardwalk. Well, look at the let's make it a little bigger. Look at the line for the boardwalk. How many points do I have on the bold line? Okay. Yeah. How many points do I have on the bold line? Yeah, just one. Just one. That's a problem. 1 point is not enough to find the slope. How many points do I have on the road? How many?
2.
Oh,
2,
yeah.
right? Look at the thin line. The thin line has 2 points on it. So wait a minute, I have enough information. I can find the slope of the road. And then once I know the slope of the road, if I know it's perpendicular to the boardwalk, well then all I have to do is flip it and make it negative. So let's find the slope of the road first. And then that'll tell me the slope of the boardwalk. Okay? If I had another point on the boardwalk, like if they labeled that as a point, then I could use it. But they didn't label it, so maybe it doesn't exactly go through that point. Right? All I know is the boardwalk is perpendicular to the road. So let's start with the road. Okay, so my slope. This is going to be the slope of the road. We're going to fill in those 4 boxes. And we're going to use those 4 numbers. Okay. What number could I put in the upper left box? Remember, that's y2. So if I want to find the slope of the road, what number could I use? Yep, that'll work. That's a y value right there. 1. So that's y2 minus, what's y1? Yep, that's going to have to be this one right there. Now, x2. Which number is x2 in this problem? 5. It's right there. And which number is x1?
0.
0. Well, that'll be easy to do arithmetic with. So, let's find the slope. 1 minus minus 4, let's just go like this. Plus. What's 1 plus 4? 5. What's 5 take away 0? 5. And what's 5 divided by 5? 1. So that's the slope of road. They want to know an equation for the boardwalk, not the road. But you should be able to tell me the slope of the boardwalk now. If you know the boardwalk is perpendicular to the road, and you've got the slope of the road, you guys know what to do with it to make it the slope of the boardwalk. What are the two things you have to do to a number to make it perpendicular? What's the first one? Make it the opposite. What's the second thing? Yep.
Not flip, yeah.
Flip it. Yep. Make it the opposite and then flip it. Okay, here's the slope of the road. Let's make it the opposite and then flip it. And that's going to be the slope of the boardwalk, which is perpendicular. What do you get when you flip 1? Think of 1 like this. When you flip 1, it stays the same. Now, so you flip it, you get 1. What's the opposite? -1. That's the slope of the boardwalk. Okay, because the slope of the road was 1. I want the boardwalk to be perpendicular, so I found the opposite reciprocal, and that's the slope of the boardwalk. Okay. Slope is what letter? M. So we got the M. The only other thing we need, I'm going to erase this so you can see it a little better, is that coordinate. Remember, to write an equation, you need 2 things. You need the slope, and then you need the coordinate. So here is your coordinate, 0, -4. Those are the 3 numbers that you have to plug into the formula. From here, it's just like a problem like this. You guys just found the slope, and you've got these other 2 numbers to fill in. So let's do that, and then that'll be it. Okay. Point slope form. Blake, what's the first letter we always start out with in point slope form? Yep. Y. Jaden, what always comes right after the Y? Minus. Yep. Y minus. What number am I going to put right after the minus? Yep. That's my Y. Y minus -4. Now, I think it was Jaden who said equal sign. That comes next. Equals. Kayla, what comes after the equal sign? Well, let's set, what letter is it? Joe? M. It's always my slope, and we just found my slope. Right there. Slope of the boardwalk, -1. What comes after the M? This is just a symbol, not a number. Yep. Before that, in between, we're going to have an X here. Parenthesis, yep. X. Now, what comes after the X? This never changes. Minus. And what comes after the minus? In this case, yeah, it's just -0. One more thing I need to finish that up. Parenthesis. Now, y minus -4. What's that turn into? Y plus 4 equals. Now, what's x take away 0? It's just x, right? If you ever write down a problem like 3 minus 0, you don't even need to write -0 because -0 doesn't do anything. So you don't even need the -0. Now if it was -1 or -2, yeah, you need it. But -0, you don't even need it. There's your equation. Minus a minus turned into a plus, and because it was a -0, we don't even need it. Any question on that? That's it. So that's how you find an equation perpendicular to another equation. So really, really good job today for just coming back from break. That was awesome. Okay, homework tonight will be a worksheet. Tomorrow, no test. We're just gonna do an MCAS question, go over the homework, and that's it.